My name is Emalie Livett. I'm a fantasy romance author of the debut novel Flesh and Fangs. And the lovely Amelia has asked me to do an interview. I'm from a tiny little community in Alabama. I'm sure you can tell from my lovely southern accent. I live a pretty mundane life. I'm currently a stay-at-home mom, so that gives me a lot more time to focus on my writing. But other than that, I don't have any interesting facts to tell you. I guess I've been writing since I was about 10. So these stories, they come and they just don't leave me alone until I write it. I have so many favorite authors that it's hard to really narrow it down. I would contribute my love for fantasy starting with Cassandra Clare, the Mortal Instruments. She really introduced me to fantasy, fairies, demons, all of the wonderful things like that I like to write about. So I would probably say her, but more recently, I've become a part of the SJM fandom. I love her. I'm so excited for the Crescent City book to come out. It really depends on the day. Like I said before, I am a stay-at-home mom, so that takes precedence over my own writing. But I'm a night owl. I like to sit down at 7, 8 o'clock after the kids have gone to bed and write. And I have been known to write until 2 o'clock in the morning. That is not a daily occurrence. That doesn't happen very often. Most of the time, I will be in bed by 12 or so. So I would say 3 to 4 hours a day, typically, but not always. The hardest part about my artistic process is definitely following my plot line. I am a known pantser, so even though I have an outline, I know the ending. Sometimes my characters do not listen, and they go about it on their own terms. They do what they want to do, and that's okay, but it throws me for a loop every single time. I absolutely have to listen to music while I'm writing. I have 2 or 3 different playlists that I listen to while I am writing, and it really just helps set the mood. It helps set the tone for what I'm writing. If I'm wanting to write something really traumatic, I'm gonna put the saddest things on and let them take control over my writing. I think I can speak for a lot of us authors and say that our ideas come from literally everywhere. From a dream to a TV show to just plain people watching. You might get an idea for a character, and then the more you develop the character, the more their story starts to come to you. So it comes from everywhere. I couldn't pinpoint it down to just one specific thing that the plots come from. Ooh, this is a really good one. I do want to follow some of the same trends, but I want to write what I want to read. If I want to read it, I know somewhere out there somebody else does too. So I want to take the plot and have it be original. But if we're being honest, there are no true original stories anymore. somewhere out there, someone has written it. Someone has thought it. It's your job as an author to make it unique and your own. I published through a small indie publishing company called Flick It Books. I love them. They are the best people to work with. My editor, Misty, we were actually working together with a different company at one point, and we both found out that we did not really like the direction that the company was going in, had some minor disagreements, so she created her own publishing company and I followed her because she is just that sweet and amazing, and I didn't want to go the traditional publishing route just because I wanted more hands-on. I wanted to be able to help pick my cover. I wanted to be able to be there to make the big decisions that you kind of lose control over when you publish traditionally. So yeah, I 100% recommend using a small indie publishing company like Flick It Books. They are just truly amazing people. So my book is definitely more character driven than plot driven, and while I love the plot of my story, the characters really are the essence. That's what all of my reviewers rave about, is that it feels like you know the characters. And how I develop them is I love psychology, so all of my characters have an Enneagram, and it really helps me deep dive into what their fears are, their motivations, and from there, that is where the plot blossomed. My favorite part to write was definitely the plot twist. I had it planned from the very beginning, so I was just crawling with anticipation to write it. Probably one of the first things that I wrote, just because I was so excited about it. Without giving anything away, it definitely comes at you. As a reader, you see what's happening, but the characters don't know what's happening until it's already too late, and it's good. I promise, it's good. So, Flesh and Fangs actually was a working title for a while, but there are a few instances within the novel where Flesh and Fangs is in the same sentence, and it is kind of a play on words. So flesh refers to my main protagonist, Rin, who has had to use her body to provide for herself and her family. And then Fangs really follows one of the male main characters, Baz. He has a deep, dark secret that I will not be talking about. So one really big change that I made was the two brothers. They are twins. Their role in the plot twist was reversed, which doesn't seem like it should be that big of a deal, but when you read it and you get to know the characters, it really is. That's the biggest change that I made. I did have to go back in and add a couple of scenes. I literally forgot about a minor character and she just kind of disappeared. So I did have to go back in and do some of that, but the biggest change was that plot twist with the two brothers. The character that I relate to the most is definitely Luca. He is the sweetest, cutest little fox fairy. I guess because he is so kind and he loves talking, He loves to eat. Food is his favorite pastime. I relate to him so much. He's been described as a cinnamon roll. I have on many occasions been described as too nice and a cinnamon roll. So they may have a point. He's definitely my favorite. So Flesh and Fangs is definitely not a YA. I would consider it a new adult fantasy romance. So if you like fairies or fantasy romance, ACOTAR specifically, it has a very similar vibe. So there are some darker elements. Always read your trigger warnings just to make sure that it's something that you're comfortable reading. But yeah, that's how I would describe my ideal reader. Just anybody that really likes fantasy, and then loves the characters that start to develop the slower burn romances. Most of my reviews have come from my ARC Read team. So yes, I do go in from time to time and check and see if anything else has been posted in my Goodreads or Amazon or whatever. I have only really received one not so great review, and I can't fault the reviewer for that at all. I know that my book isn't going to be for everybody, and that's okay. But basically all that she had to say was she liked the idea, the premise of my novel, but she didn't like the way that it was executed. It is a multi-point of view, so it follows multiple characters, and she felt that it jumped around a little bit too much. And that's okay. It's not for everybody, and I don't have a problem with that. So that kind of answers the other question as far as like, how do you cope with the negative feedback? You just let it roll off. I know that my book is not for everybody, and that is completely okay. Everyone else has left wonderful positive reviews that have really enjoyed it. So the good ones overpower the bad, and that's how I deal with it. So currently I am working on the third novel in this trilogy, and I have also started on a spin-off. So it's the same universe but with new characters, and it kind of gives me a little bit of a workaround so I can let you guys see the characters that I've already written, how they are after the fallout of the third novel. And I also want to tell you that Flesh and Fangs is in audiobook production, so that is something else that I'm super excited about right now. The most important piece of advice that I can give to new writers is not to sound like a Nike commercial, but just do it. Get your first draft done. Put pen to paper, open your laptop, however it is that you like to write, and just spit out the first draft. Your first draft is going to suck. I'm just telling you, that's how you start though. You have to word vomit, get all the nasty, gritty, nitty gritty out of the way, and then you can go back and edit it later. Once you start, you have already succeeded. Thank you once again, Amelia, for reaching out and giving me this opportunity to talk about my book. It means so much to me. You can get a copy of Flesh and Fangs on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and it's also available as an ebook, so on Apple Books or Kindle. And we are also in audiobook production, so hopefully we'll have an audiobook up on Audible sometime this October.